This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well now, there are ways to start on an average safari, and then there are magical ways to start on a live safari. And an elephant calf that is just a few hours old, well, I think it's safe to say we know where that one falls. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Sebastian is on camera with me, and we are live from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sand in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. I don't want to take my eyes off the little one, so now that we've got that out of the way, remember, you can send through your questions and your comments on hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or alternatively you can ask us questions in the YouTube chat stream. It just wants a drink, Mum. Now, they've just come down. For those of you that don't know, we have a camera at the water hole here, and it has just come down for a drink. It planted its face in the water. It was too adorable for words. I didn't even know they had such flexible hips. And is now desperately trying to have some food, Mum. Looks like a little girl. Look how wobbly. Wobble, wobble. Wobble, wobble. Okay. They've crossed over onto the other side of the waterhole. And the good news is that I can now see the guests at the lodge going to go on their game drive, which means that we can quickly nip across the dam wall and follow it, which is what I was waiting for. Oh, I'm so excited. Mum's a little bit unsettled, so we're going to approach this nice and cautiously, but I'm going to try and spend as much time as I can with this little one. Oh, it's just too adorable for words. I think they're going to go and find a nice feeding spot. Let's do this backwards quickly. They're going to go find a nice feeding spot in the shade. They might even go and have a little bit of a sleep. I'm hoping that might be the case because they've got such a brand new herd member. And this is what's so special about elephants, is that the entire herd will band around the little one and make sure that it is safe and protected, and the fact that it needs a little bit more extra sleep than they do will mean that they take care of it. They'll all stop, they'll guard it, they'll give it some shade if necessary. Oh, too sweet. Just a couple of hours old. Okay, as we catch up to this little elephant, there are several people out this afternoon. Sydney is one of them, and he's going to tell you what his plans are.
A very, very good afternoon and welcome to the beginning of the afternoon safari. I am Sydney Mikosi, and I'm traveling with Senzo, who is my camera operator. We are going to be looking for the lions this afternoon. Hopefully we will find them sleeping somewhere. And for your questions and comments, you can follow us on Twitter, hashtag SafariLive. You can also follow us on YouTube chat stream. So the sun is very much hot this afternoon, which is a very nice weather in order to ground the predators such as the cats. They don't roam around a lot when the sun is strong like this. Chances of seeing the animals who has been spotted this morning are very much high. So I hear this morning there has been a couple of sightings, lion sightings and some leopard sightings. So now let's go to my other colleague. So we are going now to the Masai Mara, where James is just about to depart.
Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. I am in the Masai Mara in East Africa, in Kenya, and we're sitting with the Sausage Tree Pride, and they of course are having themselves a good Sunday snooze. My name is James Henry. Please ask us any questions you'd like to using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or of course the YouTube chat stream. On camera today we have got Manu El Bandito Akatsa. There he is, making noises. And over there we've got Kinky Tail. She's lying in the grass. She is the most recognizable lion in the Sausage Tree Pride. They are obviously not doing an enormous amount right now, but we're pretty sure that there are young cubs in this riverbed just below where they're having a snooze, so hopefully they will pop out at some stage. We also have heard reports of a cheetah not too far from here. Manu will point the camera sort of vaguely in that direction, and we'll head towards there. I think while these chaps sleep, the focus, of course, is going to be on these lions because we have our TV show later on today. So I think we'll probably stay with them for the duration of the TV show. If there are some strange communications, we do have some strange communications issues with the final control at Djuma, but they seem to be okay at the moment. So just be patient with us there. Let's go back to Djuma now, where Jamie is with an Ellie.
I'm with several Ellies, but unfortunately, I think in this scenario we're not going to be able to follow that little one as much as we were hoping we could. They're very, very unsettled this afternoon. I think perhaps that female's birth has caused a bit of upset in the herd. Remember how I said they're very protective over their little ones, even if it's not their own baby? And that one female on the left gave us a very stern look as we made our way closer. So we're just going to sit here, nice and still. We're going to wait for the female with the baby to come to us. I think it's actually having a nap at this point. They've made their way into the shade, and I think that's what it's doing. So you can see some of the older babies of the herd all settled down around the tambuti thicket. That one's throwing its trunk around. You're trying to grab some sand. After the last few cloudy, very cold days, it has now heated up quite nicely. There's still a nip to the wind, but in the sun it's probably, what's it, around about 29 degrees centigrade. Hey girls, it's okay, it's alright. What is up? I'm far away, it's okay. Nico viewer, that tiny little baby that you saw earlier, you want to know how much it weighs. It weighs around about 100 kilograms, believe it or not. So over 200 pounds. When baby elephants are born, they're born at around about 100 kilograms. So even though this thing looks minute, it is actually, I mean, it's the baby of the largest land mammal on the planet. So it's tiny in comparison to them, but not quite as tiny as you might expect it to be. Hi, big girl. If you have a look at this elephant, you can see the deep indentations around her forehead. Now, that's indicative of age in an elephant like this. So she's quite an old female. You can see her skin starting to hang around her hip bones, around her spine. So I would guess she's definitely over 40. I would probably put her even older than that. So one of the senior members of the herd, if not the senior member, if not the matriarch. They're moving slowly. We just have to be patient in this situation. If we reposition now, if we try and see that baby again, they're going to get very upset with us. There it is. It's between the legs there of the one dust bathing. There we go. Here's a little one. Backing up, big girl. I'm backing up. It's okay. It's alright. There we go. Whoopsie. Got to reverse straight, Seb. Not into a tree. It's alright, big girl. There we go. If I stop here, is that okay? Is that alright? Unfortunately, my car is making some very peculiar sounds. So in that situation, I probably could have stayed where we were, and we would probably have been absolutely fine. But the way in which she approached it, you can see her body language is unsettled. It's okay. It's alright, girl. It's okay. Now, talking to her has absolutely no real impact on how she experiences the situation. But they do respond to tone, so by talking low and calm, it's just an extra way of trying to de-escalate the situation. Right, I'm going to take my foot off the brake now, Seb. Sorry. My right leg was slightly tense there. So we probably would have been fine to stay where we were, but I didn't want to get it to the point where she was very close to us, because she did approach in a very determined way. Now what she's doing is putting herself between us and the tiny baby, which is exactly what we spoke about. And in the shade as well. Maybe she just wanted the shade. No, I don't think so. I think there was a degree of discomfort there. Now, one thing that I was not looking at was whether or not she was flapping her ears, because contrary to what people think when they see elephants, that is not a sign of aggression, and that's to answer Joshua's question about why elephants move their ears all the time. On a hot day like today, that is their way of cooling down. So it's basically an internal cooling system. There's the baby there, Seb. It's popped out. So it was suckling from mum. So it's a sort of an internal cooling system. The skin is quite thin and packed full of, inside, underneath the skin is packed full of capillaries. Oh, you're too sweet. And the blood flows very close to the surface, so they move their ears, which is something this little one's going to have to learn to do because he's not quite at that point yet. And they move their ears to create airflow over the ears. That cools down the skin, which cools down the blood, which then circulates to the rest of the elephant's body. Look at it, it's still got white patches on it. It's been covered in dust now. I think it's put its face in the dirt. Cull 6, yes, potentially a car horn could scare elephants off. It could do the exact opposite and actually provoke them. So a loud, surprising noise like that could have worked, but really it was for me to back out of her space rather than trying to scare her off in any way. She was doing exactly what she should, which is protecting her family. And I noticed they were unsettled even when they were at the water's edge. So it was just for us to back away and to give her a little bit of space rather than the other way around. See how she stayed, even though the rest of the herd have moved now. It's all right, big girl. So we could have, I mean, we've actually disconnected all of the car horns, given what happened to us once during a TV show going into an ad break, when it decided to have a mind of its own and just blare at us during an actual TV show. Yes, that was a wonderful time going into ad break. But yeah, the elephant's body language is a very, very important part of reading them. So while you don't have to look at the flapping ears, you do have to look at the ears occasionally. Now, ears out and head up is an indication of an unsettled elephant, as well as a very stiff tail. The tail is the best indicator of mood. Now, these elephants' tails haven't really been swaying there. That's a good example of a nervous elephant. Now we're okay again because we're catching up with our family. Hey boy. And you'll notice that there's other vehicles that are making their way in as well. So what we also didn't want to do was be in a position where they felt sandwiched between the two of us. I had a feeling they'd been trying to call me. But it's also, I think, what provoked her and why the other vehicles are fine with them is the very strange sound that our vehicle is currently making. Jigga is, and her name is Jigga, the car that I'm driving. She doesn't sound very good. She's making some very peculiar whining sounds, and I think that might also have exacerbated the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the vehicle back quickly to see if I can catch the mechanic. So while we do, I'm going to race off in that direction. I'm going to send you across to Tristan, who's been racing in the opposite direction towards Klalamba.
Well, we are racing in the opposite. Well, we raced in the opposite direction. We're not racing anymore, as you can see. We're dead stationary now. Theoretically, we're exactly where we left Kalamba this afternoon, and I mean this morning. And she's supposed to be here, but I don't see any sign of her. So we'll kind of have to look around a little bit. But as JB mentioned, my name's Tristan. On camera, I've got Craig. It is a warm welcome to Rusty, and I hope that you are going to enjoy your afternoon with us. Now, theoretically, she's supposed to be inside of this grassy tuft on my left-hand side. This is what I'm told. Jackie and Trishala and Lauren spent the day here, and they said that she hasn't moved, but I don't find a leopard inside there. I've just looked now to try and see, but I don't see her unless I'm just looking in the complete wrong tuft at the moment, which is not a good thing at all. So I'm just going to try and see if I can find some sort of sign of her here, and we'll just do a little kind of bypass and just try and check what's going on. Now, she could be just lying somewhere slightly different. The guys said that she hasn't moved, and now I know for a fact that in terms of not moving, she should then theoretically be inside here. So I'm just trying to see. It is a wall of grass, and so maybe, just maybe, she's curled up in there, but I don't see any spots at all or any sign of a little face poking out, and I would expect her to have lifted her head or her ears at some point. Now, I've driven around the other side as well, and I don't see anything inside there either. So I'm a little bit kind of skeptical that she maybe just did a little runner and no one actually even noticed her moving out the back side of this grassy kind of area, because I don't see any kind of signs of her. And normally with her, she's quite kind of watchful, so as soon as she sees a car, she kind of pokes her head up to see what's going on, and I haven't seen any sort of movement like that, and I'm trying to peer into it. I might be wrong. She might be lying right here and we just can't see her, which would then kind of show how camouflaged she can be, but I somehow don't think so, if I'm honest. Might be wrong though. Let's check. I hope she hasn't moved, because that will be a bit tricky to find her then. Rima, no, not necessarily. You know, she's waiting for Mom, so her instinct, or her kind of way of doing things, is to just sit still and wait and hope that Mom is, you know, comes round. And so you find it with cubs. They sometimes do sit in the same spot, particularly if it's quite warm and hot. Then you'll find that they will just kind of take it easy in the same area. But what I am surprised about is the spot she's chosen. That's what I am surprised about. This is not the greatest of spots for a little leopard to sleep in. Now, it looks like she was lying all over here, but I don't see any sign of her. Craig, do you see anything? No, I don't see a leopard inside here. Oh, there she is, right there. So she's not in the grass at all. I've now spotted her. She's directly in front of us. Sorry, Craig, I'll move us now, but I've just got to be a bit careful. So she's sitting at, probably thinking, what are these two doing, driving around like clowns? There she's sitting in the quarry thicket over there. Anyway, let's try and just reposition Craig so he doesn't have this quarry bush in his face. There's a quarry right here that's hitting Craig, so let's not get Craig all tangled up. Craigie, I'm going to move you around now. I'm surprised I didn't see her. I suppose when you're not looking in the right direction, this is what happens. Right, now I'm going to just reposition and find myself a little bit of a better spot, and so while I do that, let's send you back across to James, who's on the search for a different kind of spotted cat, one that is a lot faster.
What we are doing while Tristan gets himself a little bit of a spot is trying to find a cheetah. We've left the sausages. We will go back there as the sun starts to set, but we are told and have seen evidence of Nasirian, the cheetah, cheetahess. Can you call that a cheetahess, female cheetah? And two little cubs. Now she's somewhere around here. We've had 3 or 4 reports. We have an Askari called Elvis with us. He's not singing us a song, but he is going to try and help us find the cheetah, which apparently was around here somewhere next to this fig tree that looks like a giraffe. It doesn't look like a giraffe from here, but from a distance it really does. I thought it was a fig tree with a giraffe underneath it, until Manu said, no, that is the fig tree with the giraffe, you know, that looks like a giraffe. There it is. Very good. Now what we need to do from here is scan, because apparently underneath one of these balanites trees, or desert date trees, we will find Nasirian the Shatar. Hold your thumbs, everybody. I do want to see this cheetah. Please, Nasirian the cheetah, show us your face. Where are you? Are you here? There's a topi. You see the topi, Manu? Yeah. Unfortunately, the topi does not appear to be alarm calling to anything. Let's carry on. There are a couple of termite mounds that she might just be lying behind. Yeah, Roxy, you're absolutely right. The trees are beautiful here. We go up the way. Right, I'm just getting a few directions from the back, which is useful because I don't know what I'm doing in this particular area. A couple of rocks here. It is the most stunning afternoon. We came out early because we were terrified, A, that we wouldn't find the sausage tree pride, and B, that it would rain again, and we wanted to be in position such that if a storm came through here, we'd be safe and with an animal. But it's turned into the most glorious afternoon. It's a lovely sort of balmy, I guess it's around about 29 degrees I'm told, which is 84 degrees Fahrenheit odd, which is very pleasant. And the place is just the most magical colour. Ooh, a couple of nasty rocks around here. And she'll definitely be lying in the shade somewhere. And so all we have to do is find the right bit of shade. And given that there isn't a massive amount of shade around here, it shouldn't present too much of a difficulty. Unless, of course, she's gone back to her cubs. Now, apparently they're in a den somewhere around here. Someone else lurking in the shelter of a bush is Tlalamba, the huntress.
Well, yes, we've got little Tlalamba now, who's still sitting under a guarri bush. You made me think that you had disappeared, but you were lying right there. If I had just opened my eyes, I would have kind of seen her quite easily. So if she had been a snake in the grass, she will have probably bitten me, and fortunately rather, we eventually spotted her before we tried to move off too far. But I'm sure she's highly sort of bored at this stage. I don't think she's going to be very happy with Mom when Mom gets back. Mom's going to be in the naughty box instead of her being in the naughty corner, unless of course Mom has food. If Mom has food, well then you'll find that this little one will probably be as boisterous as ever and will be running circles around Mom as Mom takes her to whatever carcass she might have found. But the fact that we're seeing her being left for the time period that she has been over the course of the last 2 days is probably indicative of just that Thandi is starting slowly but surely to increase periods of time away from Tlalamba, in the hope that Tlalamba starts to utilize this time to learn how to hunt and to find food and to be able to kind of make it on her own. And so I'm not surprised that this is happening. I mean, it's about the right time that you start to see that. But look at that face. Hello, little one. Oh, that's a big stretch. She's super cute, isn't she? She's been so chilled with us the past kind of 3 drives, and I've thoroughly enjoyed spending the time with her. Now, MGM, you're going to ask me, and I know this is ridiculous, but I'm drawing a blank as to what her name means. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Kirsty. Sorry, I'm getting old, Kirst. This is what happens. But anyway, her name means mischievous or boisterous, which is, now that Kirsty's told me exactly how I would have remembered it. And it's quite fitting because she is mischievous, this little one, or she certainly was very mischievous as a little cub. And when Mom's around, you'll see that she is too. She goes all over the place and runs around like an absolute hooligan. When Mom is present, she'll go in circles and she'll be up and down and on trees and down trees and looking and chuffing and generally being a bit of a hooligan. So she is a bit mischievous, and when she was tiny, she used to just do her own thing all the time. She used to kind of move around and never listened to Mom, and that's basically why she earned the name. It's also, well, because you guys all voted for it too, I suppose. So it was one of 3 names that was given to all of you to vote for, to see which one you liked best. And so Little Kalamba was what it was finally settled as. So nice name though. Difficult to say, but nice name. It's always fine when it's on her own. So if you just say Kalamba by itself, we're all good. But when you add the little Tandi factor into it, that T sound is different to the T sound of her name, and I always get tongue-tied with it. It drives James absolutely mad. There was also a stage where she was being called Tlalalamba, which drove James and Scott round the bend. I think both of them were ready to commit a mass execution of their fellow guides at one point, because that was what was being said. But obviously we know it's Tlalamba. There's no Tlala in that name, so that was all sorted. And the best person in the whole camp to say Tlalamba's name is Kirsty. She is so talented at saying it. She's the best one. Like, she has it down pat. She knows exactly how to say it. It rolls off her tongue smooth and silky. She's laughing at me because Kirst has a problem with saying Tlalamba. It always just comes out in a spew of A's and L's and M's that just don't really make the word up at all. So it's quite entertaining kind of listening to Kirst try and say it. We always have a good laugh. Hello, little one. Just call it Cub. Yes, Tandi's Cub. It will be forever known as Tandi's Cub in Kirsty's mind. Even when she gets a new one, this is still going to be Tandi's Cub. But you can see she's half sleepy but half bored. I think she's kind of wants something to happen, but it's still a bit warm and windy, and she knows that we're here and we're talking and we're around, and so probably in all likelihood she wants to kind of get up and move and carry on, but she knows she has to be waiting for Mom. Some of her kind of way she looks at us, I often think she's almost, well, particularly this morning and this afternoon, and maybe even a little bit yesterday evening, she's got this almost like, I want to play with you guys, but I don't really know what we're allowed to do, if I'm allowed to come close to you, am I not? She almost has that kind of thought going through her head at times, because she's got a little kind of playful demeanor to her, and I wonder if she's quite curious about this car and what goes on. You know, we haven't spent, like I was saying, a huge amount of time on our own with her. You know, Mom is normally present, and in that case, her attention is mostly on her mother. But now that she's kind of spending so much time alone like this, I know Brent's found her recently by herself, and I've had 1 or 2 sightings of her on her own. But this is probably the most drives we've strung together in a row without Mom being present. And she almost seems to be kind of curious as to what we do and the way we speak and how it all works. And so I'm curious to kind of see how she interacts with us for the rest of the afternoon, as if she's going to just fall asleep at my dulcet tones, or if she's going to basically wake up and start to move around. So, Kathy, viewing of cubs without needing their mom there, generally until about 8 months. So 8 months you wouldn't really view her without mom. You'll normally try and kind of keep them to, or leave them to themselves at 8 months old. Obviously, if you find her, you can have a short sighting and then let them go. But now that she's a year old, you know, she's more than capable of climbing trees and figuring out things on her own. And I watched her last night with the hyenas that approached her, because during our rehearsal she was on top of the termite mound and the hyena came along, and she didn't even bat an eyelid. She just looked at the hyena looked at her. They both kind of said, too much effort to go anywhere, and left one another alone. So she's figured things out, and at a year old she needs to, because theoretically Tandi could leave her in the next 2 months like she did with Tamba before, and she's going to need to figure things out. And obviously once she's on her own, we can view her. So it's important that we also start to spend time with her away from Tandi, because otherwise she'll never get relaxed with the fact that the vehicles are here. And so she's had a pretty long period to live life by herself, and for us not to stress her out too much by herself. But now, you know, as we start to get to a year old, she's going to be starting to hunt and do her own things, and she's more than fine with the vehicles around. As you can see, we're not exactly stressing her out at this stage, although she's watching Batman now. Look at the size of that paw in relation to her head when she's stretching. You're just doing all the poses today, aren't you? It's almost like she's just listening to what we're saying and kind of watching what's going on. Hello, little one. You're so serious. You like your brother. You know that. Yes, she's enjoying the conversation about her royalty and herself. It's quite funny from my angle, which you probably won't have, is you'll see that there's 2 leaves in front of her face from the guarri tree. Now, those 2 leaves there, from the angle that I am at, when she puts her head in a certain way, those are the perfect little moustache over her nose. It's quite funny. I'll try and line it up just now with Craig, because it's hilarious with these 2 little green leaves like hanging down on either side of her muzzle. It looks like she's got a massive moustache. And there was an Australian cricketer that, if some of you maybe should Google, because he had an epic moustache that looks a little bit like this when her face is aligned, and his name was Mervyn Hughes, who was a bad boy cricketer, and he was, you know, all over the place, and he had this huge handlebar moustache, and this kind of looks just like that over her face, except it's a guarri bush moustache, should I say. And so it's very, very cute. When she needs to get her head in the right place, and unfortunately where Craig is not quite the right sort of view. It also obviously blocks her face a lot if I kind of put Craig there, but we'll try it just now to see if we can get the little guarri moustache on little Tlalamba. What are you doing? Right, I'm going to try and see if I can find some sort of place to align the leaves on her muzzle. And while I do that, let's send you back across to James Hendry, who's playing, apparently, Where's Waldo, with the cheetahs of the Masai Mara Triangle.
All I got from that link, everybody, is that I'm going to find something to lump a lead with Tlalamba's moustache. I don't think that's what it was. Anyway, we are still trying our best to find the cheetah on this gorgeous afternoon. Not feeling in the slightest bit frustrated, not feeling in the slightest bit precious, because it's so pretty. Oh, it was about Tlalamba's moustache, I see. That's very odd. I didn't know Tlalamba had a moustache. I've never found a moustache on a woman to be particularly attractive. But each to his own. Oh, a leaf moustache. Oh, right. Well, that's okay then. Now, I'm told that she has a den somewhere in between these 2 hills, which I think are the things we're heading towards now, but it really is a little bit of broken telephone that you get out here. And apparently she was lying without the cubs earlier today, which means she could easily have left them, at least left where she was, to go and feed them. So we'll just pop around here. There are elephants about, so if we see some, we'll show them to you. But, I mean, just being in a landscape like this is magic. It smells so clean, there are hardly any other vehicles around. We basically have the place to ourselves. All 50,000 hectares or so, some 120,000 acres. Zach, my favourite thing about the Mara is the space. I mean, yeah, really, if you look at that is my favourite thing about the Mara. It's just endless, gorgeous, gorgeous views. Obviously the animals are spectacular as well, and it's lovely to have so many here. But it's the real sense of space that you get here. I think because you can see so far. You know, the Mara Serengeti is no bigger than the Kruger, but obviously in the Kruger you can't see the same distance. And so it just gives you a sense of real space. And I guess because it's parkland, in other words, because there's short grass and trees dotting it, it makes us psychologically feel very comfortable. There's a psychological phenomenon in human beings where we seek out parkland with a few tall trees but a fairly short grass underneath. That's why we design our parks like that. And it comes from way back when we just learned to stand, because it means we can see for a distance but we still have the security of the trees. Quite interesting, I think. Alright, let's keep going. No luck as yet. We will go back to those cheetahs, at least to the lions, if we do not come right with these cheetahs. You know what else? We didn't used to have signal in this area when I was last here, and that was all rectified during our Gauntlet series. And so it was very special to be able to drive in this area and share it with you. Righty, Sydney is looking for some Leons, so I think we'll go and find out how that search is going.
So I am now busy trying to get hold of the fresh lion tracks. It seems like these lions are much more towards the Gary Cut line. Somewhere there is where maybe we might be lucky and find them. I'll just go check that area as well as the Buffalo's Hook Dam, as the Buffalo's Hook Dam is the nearest dam to where these lions has been spotted earlier this morning. The wind is too much here where I am. So there's no other animals here in this area. Maybe this is a sign that the big cats are somewhere around here. So I'm gonna have to look very carefully because these kind of animals can lie down flat. And it's not easy to see the lions when they are lying down during this time of the day unless you know where exactly they are. Still no tracks at the moment. Soon as I pick up some tracks, I will be able to tell how much time we are going to take to find them. So now let's go to Tristan.
We're still with little Columba. You can see she's now found a nice little spot to rest her paw. Is that comfy, girl? Do you like that little spot? Yes. Okay. Well, you're welcome to like whatever spot you want. But you can see there that Gwari's made the perfect little spot to kind of hang one's paw over. I'd imagine it's much like leaning against a shelf or something like that. That's what it would I would think it would be, or leaning against a sort of bar counter or something. Maybe she's a little bit young for the bar counter, Columba, although maybe you need to perfect your skill for later in life. She's getting to that age where she's going to be going out on the town at night and going and checking around things on her own. What are you noticing? The wind is really blowing at the moment, and so I'm pretty sure there's a lot of noise and a lot of sounds and lots of kind of things that are disrupting her, from trees rustling to grass moving, and there's a few birds that are chirping, and so I'm sure she's just kind of watching out from all of that. Connie, I would imagine maybe in the initial phases they would probably, I suppose when they're really young they don't even know what's going on, and so being left alone probably doesn't mean anything to them really, and then they just get used to it. But I would imagine if things like lions come past or they get chased up a tree or something like that, then I'm sure they go through a period of anxiety or at least an emotional stress. But for the most part, I don't think so. I think it's more boredom than anything else when they're sitting like this. And you can imagine she's been sitting here since yesterday morning waiting for Mom to return and be like, come on, let's go somewhere else. And she's just had to kind of sit it out and wait. Now, what will happen eventually in time is that she will start to move around a lot more. So she'll start hunting, she'll start going and looking for water, and eventually the periods of time is just going to increase in more and more and more. And the sort of aggression from Thandi is going to be that much more, that she's going to have to be left kind of on her own and figure things out. But I think it's still a little bit early. She's so little. I would be a bit nervous of her being on her own at this age already and being left to do her own things. I think it would be a very tricky period for her if she were to be left by herself at this time. I mean, she's still very little in comparison to, you know, some of the in comparison to, you know, a lot of the other leopards out here. I mean, to compete with that skittish female up near Buffalo's Hook, Thandi, Kuchava, you know, Shadulu, it would be very tricky for her, and even Nkanyeni to a degree, and Nkanyeni's daughter too is going to come of age, and she's going to have a tough time of it to stay out of trouble and stay away from anybody that's going to try and hurt her. So I'm hoping that Thandi is kind and keeps her for a little while longer, maybe sort of, I would hope 6 more months. And that should get her to a nice sort of size that she'll be able to then look after herself a lot better. Like I said, I remember with Shongile, it was the exact same. Shongile was tiny at around a year old. She looked as though she was half the size of Hosanna, and then in the space of about 6 months, she really grew quite a bit. As soon as she started making her own kills and developing, she started to really kind of come into her own and develop in size. Ultimately, she was still quite small, and obviously Thandi sort of chased her away, and we know that there was that whole interaction, but I would be very, very, very kind of hesitant for her to go now, and I'm hoping that she'll show a similar pattern to Shongile and actually start to really kind of move and to try and kind of actually what would you call it, grow and be able to then hunt. So Ladybird, her eyes are quite interesting. They've changed colour slightly. When we first started to see her, they weren't actually the brightest of colours, and they didn't really look like they were going to be anything spectacular. But in the last few months, they've almost starting to take on a little bit more of a kind of greenish color. If you look at them there's a sort of slight undertone of green. It's not much, it's mostly sort of yellow base to it, but there is definitely a bit more of a lightness in that eye, and she's starting to really kind of get these beautiful eyes that the Thandi's kind of cubs are known for. She's always had cubs that have had pretty eyes, and so she's almost taking on that light kind of yellow, or almost translucent yellow with touch of greeny blue in them, which is very, very pretty. So she's got a really nice kind of set of eyes. I like the eyes that she's got. Obviously Tama's eyes were extraordinary and beautiful in his own right, but hers are really taking on a nice color now. And it's often what happens with leopards is, as cubs, their eyes are a certain color, and then they slowly but surely start to change a little bit as they get a little older. And you'll find that depending on which leopard it is, and the eyes get a little bit more subdued in terms of the vividness of the color. If you take Tiani, for example, she had sapphire blue eyes, and when I say sapphire blue, I mean they were blue, and those faded somewhat and have now become more like Anderson's eyes, which is this kind of grey blue, but very, very light, and not the same sapphire blue that we've been seeing on her when she was a cub. And so you see that with the cubs, their eye color changes and gets a little more muted as they go. But hers is definitely getting more of a green tone to it as she's getting older, which is quite nice. But I think she's got beautiful eyes. She's got a very serious face, though. Look at that. Hello, you little one. Delightful. So just so everybody knows, it's apparently Jamie Patterson is apparently a TV star now. She's gone to the Mara, done TV, become famous for her work with hyenas, and has decided that she doesn't actually want to participate in the afternoon show anymore. She'll do TV this evening, but the rest of the time she's going to go and spend her time back at camp with her feet up, being pampered and being brought all kinds of things by the trainees. So she's apparently, this is through the grapevine, she's ordered caviar and champagne in order to sit back and relax while she gets a facial. It's just what the grapevine is saying. And I think it's probably because she hit all-time fame actually this morning with her poetry. She's, from what I hear, is being coined as the next Shakespeare, the Shakespeare of the modern era. And so she's now, it was just too much work this morning for her to do another game drive this afternoon, and so she's decided to go put her feet up until such time as TV comes around, where she can then be the star of the show once again. So for now, she's going to just take it easy back at camp. She's apparently saying that I shouldn't be jealous as she's putting on her charcoal face mask. Because, yeah, I'm not jealous at all. I'm sitting with a leopard, which is probably, for me, the best place to be. We all know that as long as I'm out and there's a spotty cat around, I'm quite happy with where I am. So I don't mind at all. But, Jamie, I hope you enjoy your pamper session and your relaxed afternoon. I'm just glad that you're getting some time off. I wouldn't want to work you too hard over the course of the next few days. We obviously know that you are vitally important as the star of the show, and so we will pamper when we need to. Now, what I'm going to try to do is, while little Kalamba's got her face up, Did Jamie say a naughty word to me? That's naughty, Kirsty. I'm going to try and line up Craig. Craig, can I ask you just to keep... I know it's going to be a bit rough, but I just want to see her face with the little moustache. Let's see if we can get this right. Okay, little Kalamba, you've got to keep your face where it is. Oh no, there's going to be a stick in the way to line it up. Perfect. If I get it right, I can also come home. Craig, let's see. Go in tighter there. Let's have a look. Oh no, her face is not quite right. It was almost there. If she just drops her face... Come on, put your face back, little Kalamba. The little moustache is the perfect thing. Let's see if she'll do it. I think she will do it eventually again, but at one point she had the perfect height on her face that it was just sitting directly over her nose. But there you can see if she drops her head down a little bit, can you imagine that over? It will be hilarious if we can get this right. Come on, Kalamba. Put your nose down a little bit so we can see you with a little gory moustache. Kirsty says this is where we need a laser beam because cats always chase lasers around, and so we can just make her kind of put her muzzle down. Although I don't think a laser beam would work, Kirsty. I think she'll be too active for that. So what we want is for her to get a little sleepy and just to drop her face slightly and look kind of down a bit. I know she is very close. I agree, Kirst. It almost seems like she's going to get it right. The problem is there's squirrels alarm calling, so I wonder if Mom's on her way back to our south. There's some squirrels. There you go, look at that. Well, we can say she's got a gory beard now. It may not be a moustache, but she's got a little gory beard at the moment. And I'm sorry, girl, we're making fun of you, aren't we? But it's all in good jest. Everyone's enjoying it. There we go. There's the little... It's ridiculous. She looks like a catfish. It's also like, yes, it looks like one of those olden day Chinese moustaches, or those, those ones that are long that hang down. It really is quite wonderful. I like it. I think it's fantastic. Kalamba, don't look so angry with me. I'm sorry, girl. There we go, Chris. I knew you would enjoy that. I thought it was quite cool to actually see. I'm glad that all worked out, because obviously with the camera angle and my angle is two different things. So sometimes when we see something, the camera doesn't quite get it because it's a lot steeper of an angle than what I have, and so you end up with these kind of different sort of looking things. But luckily, Julie, exactly, it is Movember. Kalamba is doing her bit for Movember. There it is. It is ridiculous. No, just move. There we go. That's it. That's perfect. When it comes out of her nose, it's... That's very funny. Sure. The things that keep us entertained at this time of the day, this is what happens when we spend time out here in the hot sun, is that our brains get stewed. Anyway, we're going to sit here and enjoy this a little bit longer while Jamie Patterson takes it easy up in camp. But the other one who's not having as much fun as what we are, or Jamie, is James Hendry, as he's still playing his game of Where is the Spotted Cat up on the plains of East Africa.
It must be nice to be a TV star, I think. I think it must be great to be just a TV star. That Thompson's Gazelle is not a TV star. It's now a minor internet celebrity. Anyway, we're sitting here. We have yet to find our cheetah, but what we have found are two glorious oribi. Look at those. Are they not magnificent? We are still searching for these cheetahs, but as I keep saying to you, by way of consolation, we are looking for lots of other things and seeing beautiful landscapes, oribis, Thompson's gazelles, and general beauty. While Jamie Patterson has herself a little cup of coffee. Isn't that gorgeous? Those are not common. In fact, that's the best oribi sighting I've ever had. Would be just slightly better if there was a cheetah chasing them. Look at the way they run. Magic. Yes, Kirsten, it would be sad if they died, but we just want the cheetah running after them. We don't necessarily want to see them torn limb from limb, do we? No, that would be disgusting. All right, we're going to continue along here. Going towards two very large fig trees, and then we're going to bend our way around, and if we don't have any luck, we'll go back to the lions. We don't want to lose them. It's not very warm anymore. I mean, it's warm, but it's not hot. No, Debbie, I don't know anything about the wild dogs from this morning, I'm afraid. You know where they came from, where they're going. I do know that they went into the villages straight away, so whether they ate goat for breakfast, I'm not sure. It's the one of the disadvantages of not having secure fences in an area like this. You know, we just bleed onto community land, which in one respect is wonderful because the wild animals go into the communities and they've actually developed a really pretty good understanding of each other. But on the other hand, wild dog goes into communities and starts killing livestock, it's a problem. And so I don't know where they came from, who they are, but it was so exciting to see them. As you may have noticed if you were watching this morning, Xoli got fairly excited by the fact that he was seeing wild dogs in the Masai Mara for the first time. He's sitting behind me, his teeth are showing. It's very special indeed. So we're going to cut down through this little valley once we get to the two big fig trees and see if we get lucky. We may not. We'll do a little scan from the top here. Ooh, rock. Kathy, we're very close to the equator. We're almost on the equator here. We're just a little bit south. The equator is... I don't know how far north it is. Manu, do you know? Let's have a scan through here. I'm not sure how far away the equator is, but it's really not far at all. You do cross it in Kenya if you go north. And so, really, very pleasant climate here, especially because we're so high up. You've got some pigs there, Manu. Well done. Pigs. Water pigs. Oh, there's a huge sound of water pigs, that. Don't look very panicked by life. Of course, a cheetah would think twice about taking on a wart pig. But the wart pigs don't always know that, you see. Every time I see a Thompson's gazelle herring around the place, I assume it's being chased, but sometimes they just hare around. No, I see no cheetah. I suspect those are not the only two fig trees next to each other in the whole place, but they are very distinctive. The reason I say that is that we've been told to look for them while looking for the cheetah. Gorgeous. Just gorgeous. We should have a fairly gorgeous sunset as well. I'm sure you can feel the peace of this place just by looking at your screen at these magnificent vistas. It just is utterly, utterly breathtaking. Well, Joshua, the migration never ends completely. The migration continues regardless. Just doesn't happen to be right here where we are. Most of the animals have gone down south into Tanzania, but actually just over the ridge to the northeast of us there is a place called the Salt Lick, which many of you will be familiar with, and in fact there are huge herds of zebra and wildebeest still around the Salt Lick. And we passed a few herds of wildebeest and zebra today on our way down here, but basically over that ridge there that you're looking at is the Salt Lick, and there you will find fairly substantial herds still, or certainly 3 days ago you did. Whether they're still there I'm not sure, but most likely. Oof. Really Here's the kind of place you need to sit and just soak it all up. It's like drinking it in, really. Yes, you can hear a bird. Thank you, Kirsten. The bird you can hear is the wattled lapwing. You can hear it going. It's not a very peaceful Sunday afternoon sound, but that is the sound it has chosen to make. Alright, I think we'd better carry on. That's an elephant skull there. So an elephant popped its clogs, as it were, some time ago. Over there. Righty. Good. Shall we carry on driving? Let's carry on driving. So the 2 fig trees, little road going down this way. Yes, here we go. Might be lucky. Okay, let's go back to the other cub of the moment, who's not so much a cub anymore.
Well, no, exactly. Not so much a cub anymore at all. She's gotten quite big these days, and I suppose she still is, you know, got a bit of a cubby face. She's trying very hard to have a stern stare and get rid of the cubby face, and I suppose us making fun of her of having a Fu Manchu moustache really doesn't help in this case at all. But like I said, we weren't having fun. We were laughing with her. That's what you always got to remind yourself. But she's now decided it's sleep time. Enough entertaining with moustaches and the likes. She's going to just lie down and have a little bit of a nap. And I suppose this is what happens when we spend time out here for long periods and not much goes on, is that we start to come up with ridiculous things that leopards get to do and obviously entertain ourselves somewhat. So I can only imagine what it must be like for her to just sit here non-stop all day long waiting for Mom to come out. I am surprised though that, you know, obviously this morning we saw a hunt with a lot of vigor and energy and all seriousness try to go after some impalas. It wasn't like she was kind of taking it easy and just doing a little playful hunt. She was really hunting properly, and it surprises me that since then she's just not done anything, because there's still lots of impalas around this area. I've seen quite a few different impalas kind of moving about. They're on both sides of the drainage line where we're sitting at the moment. So there's a drainage line just to our kind of, what would we say, north, I would imagine, hey Craig? Northwest, somewhere there. And there's impalas that are kind of on both sides of that. So there's some on the far side there where that termite mound is in the background. That was where I last saw some of them. And then there's some just to us kind of south. And so I'm surprised that after that hunt this morning she hasn't tried again to go after anything. Maybe she's just kind of decided that it's too bright now and that she's going to rather wait for Mom. Maybe she thought Mom would be back a lot earlier than what she has. Now I'm hoping that tonight Thandi does come back at some point. So one of the Niconico viewers, no, we haven't searched for Thandi too much. I did drive, so basically what happened is yesterday this interaction happened with hyenas. The kill was stolen in the morning, and Thandi went south. So Thandi went towards Cheetah Plains, in Koro Chitwa boundary, and from there no one's seen her. So I've driven the fire break, which runs to the south of the block that we're in. No sign of any trucks coming back north. Obviously we can't traverse in Koro or Cheetah Plains, and so, you know, Chitwa, I asked the guys, they said they haven't seen any sign of her. It's not to say she isn't there. She can be elusive, and the place where she's crossed on Chitwa is a nightmare for finding a leopard. It's very, very dense bush there. So she could just be in there somewhere. It wouldn't surprise me. And so what the best bet for us is obviously we could drive around and try and find her, but if she's got a kill, she's going to come back to Kulalamba at some point and come and fetch her and take her back, or at some point she's got to arrive back here. So the bet is to rather just sit tight with Kulalamba and wait for Mom to arrive. The other thing is that I just wanted to spend more time with her. If I'm really honest, I'm being selfish a little bit. Hopefully you guys don't mind, but we get so little time with Thandi and Kulalamba because of their way that they're spending time on Torchwood, and we also know that difficult cat to find is Thandi at the best of times. And so when you got an opportunity to spend 3 drives in a row with little Kulalamba, It just feels like a really nice thing to do. And eventually Mom's going to come back, and getting that moment of them rejoining and coming back together is very special. And on top of that, if we can follow them back to a kill, if she does have a kill, it means that we then have the two of them for a longer period, even further, and we have a better place to start. If I leave Clalamba now, and let's say Thandi comes from this western side where there's no road up this drainage line and then takes her back, I won't have any idea where she's gone, and it'll be very difficult for me to be able to, or any of us to be able to find her again. And that means that we won't be on top of what's going on with them. And that's the problem with Thandi and Clalamba. They're actually not too bad if you follow them every drive and you try and keep looking for them. It's when you lose them for a drive, then you've done. Then they generally are gone and move all over the place, and it becomes quite tricky to find them once again. So, I think its best plan for now is just to sit with her and hope that Mom comes back and that we can follow where they go. I'm hoping that Thandi, wherever she is, did not kill on Nkoro, because obviously that means that she's going to come here, grab a little one and back onto Nkoro in a space of about 10 minutes, and there won't be really much that we can do about it. And also, we don't want them to go that side. That's not the side that we can drive. We want our little ones to be this side and to stay in our area. I doubt that she'll go too far south, though, with quarantine being around, and also that skittish male that seemingly is spending time around Chitwa. I doubt that we're going to see too much movement of Thandi to the south. She might go and explore on her own, but I don't know if she'll take little Clalamba that side just yet. Right, now, while we kind of spend time with Clalamba and see what she gets up to, let's send you back across to Sydney, who's still on the trail of the tawny cats.
I just got the tracks of the lions here where I am. Not too sure where exactly these tracks are heading to, so I'm trying to check here because it seems like they got disappeared somewhere here. So I am from the Buffelshoek Dam. These lions has been there for drinking purposes earlier on. So I just have to check all these small bushes here, because these kind of predators can easily lie down and it's difficult to see them from a long distance. So maybe the tracks are heading back to the main road, because I can see I'm not very far away from the main road at the moment. And this tracks looks like it's for the males, so it maybe it's a coalition. So there's even more tracks here showing going up this side. Things has been happening here. So I'm just gonna show you the tracks here so that you can see this lions has been here on the ground. I can see it's nice and clear there. Yeah, you can see those are the fresh tracks of these lions. So the chances of seeing the lions in the area, they are getting very high at the moment. It's just that the wind is blowing, which is making it very difficult for me to judge the age of these tracks. So I'm just going to pull forward and see if maybe we can check around here until we pick up convincing evidence. So now let's go to James, who is looking for the cheetahs at the moment.
I'm afraid we've kind of given up on our cheetah simply because we don't want to miss the lions waking up in the cubs and end up with the TV show wafting a spotlight around with nothing to see. That would be hopeless. There's a beautiful zebra. You can look at that. Just look at the beautiful zebra. Good evening, madam. Yes, I see that you are pregnant heavily. Well done. Good job. Nearly carried your baby to term. Some 11 months she's had to have that thing in her belly. Kirsten, we're not going down the road of silly puns this evening. There were enough of those yesterday evening for the lightning. There's the sun going down. I want that sun going down either behind a cheetah or some lions. So we're going to press on. Are you ready, Manu?
Yep.
Very nice. Good. Little Rufus Nape larking. Call it after me, James, yes. Not sure she will. We might be very fortunate as we sort of drive through here and bump into her. I think she's probably spent the day away from her cubs because I've got an idea of where the cub den kind of was. So we might catch her coming back this way. Hello zebras. The other thing I love about the Mara, you're asking me what I love about it the most, is the smell. It's just a lovely smell, lovely fresh verdant grass smell. Mary, we are allowed to get out of the car if we wish to relieve ourselves, but we cannot get out and go tracking or walking. No, that is not allowed here. It's because it's a national reserve basically, and you can let people on. You know, the public can drive in. It's like the Kruger Park in South Africa. You can go walking with a ranger who works for the place, and we've done that once or twice. But you can't just get out of the car and walk, because obviously people will be flattened by the various fauna that have human flattening properties. Buffalo and elephant come to mind. In parts of Botswana and Zimbabwe you can do what you like. And well, it's not surprising that they do lose people every year. They put up a sign that says, you know, go walking at your own risk. And, well, people do, and sometimes the risk doesn't pay off. Now, I think that during the Gauntlet series, when Scott and Brent were knocking around down here, the grass was probably about 4 feet tall, and it's now been eaten flat by the migration as it came through here. Paula, there are no marula trees here in the Masai Mara, no. You find them, I think, a little bit further south in Tanzania. You do not find them here, though. So they don't have a great marula jam, beer, general festivity season as they do in the Lowveld, which I've explained to you results in, well, an enormous lack of productivity. Human beings become vegetables for a little while. But the marula season is in play. No, that's not a cheat here either. Never mind. Back to the lions we go. Alright, Tristane remains with Tlalamba and the moustache. You go back there.
Well, no, she doesn't have a moustache anymore. She's now traded that in for a nest. She's decided she's going to go lie back where the grassy part is. She's had enough of being ridiculed with worry plants in her face and is now going to lie looking very, very regal in amongst the grass over there. So she looks quite content, doesn't she? She seems as though she's going to have a bit of a nap. I think the other vehicle arriving just now was probably a little bit kind of didn't feel like it, and so she moved off a little bit and has decided this is exactly where she can kind of see and watch what's going on and feel comfortable with the sort of grass behind her back. Aiden, who's 7 years old. Well, Aiden, we have a magic wand, and basically what happens is the magic wand is given to one of the trackers or the rangers that work out here, and it goes in the company of that animal, and they wave the magic wand and a name spews forth and comes out of the end, and that's how we know what they are. No, I'm joking, Aiden, that's not the case at all. Basically how it works is that we will watch a leopard or a lion or coalition. Lions are a little bit different to leopards in many respects. Lion coalitions normally have a name, or prides have a name from an area that they've inhabited or something that makes them kind of get that name, and most of the prides have had names for quite some time that it's very sort of seldom that a new name comes along. But essentially what happens is that the rangers that work in the area, as well as the trackers, they all get together and they will put forward names that are traits that this animal shows. So let's say, like with Tlalamba, meaning mischievous or playful or they decide, okay, well, that's how she is, and so let's give that name. And with her, we got 3 names, and you all decided which name you wanted to use. But essentially, that's how it works. I mean, some areas it's not quite that they'll pick out 3 names; they'll just pick out 1. But it is the guides that work on site, and normally it's the first guide that gets to see them. So it will be, let's say, Tlalamba was found by Taxon first. Taxon will be normally the one that gets first preference as to what name he would like to put forward for that leopard, an ID kind of name for her. So that's how it works. Us as guides for Wild Earth, we don't really participate in it at all. So even though we were the first ones to see little Tlalamba, we didn't put forward any names at all. We asked Herbie to kind of represent us in that regard, and Herbie kind of put the name forward with the rest of the guides, and that's how we got all the names for her to choose from. So that's how it normally works. It's also out of a little bit of respect. Herbie and Tax and Aubrey and William and Fanuti, they've spent so much time out in this area, and Rexon, and they do a lot of tracking on foot, and they find a lot of animals for us, and they help us so much that they've been here for much longer, and the naming of these animals is far more kind of, they have the language, they know the animals well, and so it just feels better for them to be doing it than for us. We kind of come in and out, and none of us as guides have been here for remotely as long as what they have, and so I don't know, it feels better that they kind of do it than what we do, and it also then removes any kind of emotion amongst presenters or anything like that, or any boastfulness. We're happy with however it goes, as long as it's the right kind of name that the guys have offered forward from themselves, and not just kind of being pushed into it by us. And the fact that they allow us to kind of participate in it is always very nice. So it's a kind of returned respect that they have in many ways, and that we can also include all of you, is them being very kind of, what would the word be? Well, they acknowledge the fact that it's very important that we have these kind of ID kits, and that all of you like to be able to associate a name with an animal, and allow all of you to participate in what's an amazing kind of environment we're in, as well as the specialness of making a connection with certain animals. So yeah, I think it works all the way around. Hopefully that wasn't too long an answer, but it definitely is the way that it goes. It's basically the guides that name it, that are from that particular lodge where that leopard is basically born, or whatever the cat is that's born in. Like I say, things like cheetah, lions don't really get individual names unless there's a real kind of trait that they have. Here in South Africa, in the Masai Mara, it's slightly different. There you'll find all the male lions pretty much have names. A lot of even the females do too, and all the cheetah, because of how many there are, have names, as opposed to the leopards there. Most of the leopards have no ID at all. So it's quite interesting how down here, because we see a lot more leopard and less cheetah, all our leopards really have ID kits, whereas the cheetah are a little bit kind of unknown. Whereas, up there it's the complete opposite. Tlalamba, are you done, girl? Are you still going to sit and wait for Mom? I was hoping she was going to go up towards the termite mound and pose beautifully for us in the late afternoon light, but I don't think we're going to get that. I think that's going to be a push too far. I think she's going to decide to have a bit more of a nap and take it very, very easy, and wait for Mom to start coming back, rather than kind of moving around too much. I really do hope Tandy comes back this evening. It will be so nice if she does. It will definitely kind of make things quite interesting, because I'm quite keen to see where she goes and which way she comes from. I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's possible. You never know with Tandy. She does some random things at random times, and I suppose she could be coming into an estrus cycle again. And she mated early when she mated with Tingana to basically have Tlalamba, so it's possible that she could be going to an estrus cycle. But the thing about Tandy is that I would be very, very, very surprised is that if she went into an estrus cycle and didn't hook up with Tingana. It's most of her territory falls within his, and it would surprise me if we didn't find her. Also, she's such a relaxed cat, and when she's mating, it's actually much easier to find her than it isn't, because of her frequency of mating. And so we would have heard a report of her mating somewhere. I don't think she can creep around here without anybody finding her, and so I don't think she's in estrus yet, but it will come soon. It's going to be within the next, I would say, 3 months. We're going to start to see her coming into her first estrus cycles, and obviously when that happens and she mates, then that kind of break of her and Clalamba starts to really kind of happen, particularly if she starts to feel like there's little ones inside her, then she starts to get quite aggressive quite quickly towards Clalamba, and it'll be very kind of interesting to see where Clalamba ends up. Will she spend more time on this side, on Torchwood, or will she go back to kind of where she was born in that area? I suspect she's going to hang around between sort of, I reckon, around Torchwood Camp and then up towards Buffelshoek Dam. That kind of swathe there is going to be where Clalamba is going to spend a bit of time. The only problem is that that skittish female is being seen around Buffelshoek Dam a few times now, and so yes, maybe a little bit further south might be better for her. But it'll be interesting because obviously traditionally Tundi has always favoured the eastern side of Djuma and the western side of Torchwood, but within Kanyeni having her side and her little female, who's going to end up settling where is going to be quite kind of interesting. Good. We're going to sit with this little cat. We're going to see what it gets up to. In the meantime, though, back to Sydney, who's still searching for the lions.
I was not lucky with the lions. The minute I got somewhere near the Buffelshoek, the lions crossed right into the Buffelshoek area. So now I am changing the plans, going down to the Chitwa Dam in order to see what is happening around the Chitwa area. So the two male lions has just crossed. Maybe they will come back afterwards, shortly after the sunset. I'll come back again and see if there will be some lion activities later on. So this fire break here next to me is starting to recover at the moment. I can see there's an area where there was a control band dance some few months ago, but now I can see that it's now starting to get green again. So as soon as we receive good rains, this fire break is going to be completely green. Animals are even starting to feed. I can see some impalas now are excited to feed from the fire break. So these are the impalas who are going to pressurize this fire break, because feeding here too much is going to take away a lot of nutrients, and the grass is not going to bring more nutrients until the rain is back. So the impalas, they might start giving birth from the second week of December, second week of November normally, which will be in 2 weeks' time, not December, which will be in a week's and a half time. That is when they are starting to give birth. So hopefully we might start to see the little ones, the lambs, anytime soon. So when giving birth, impalas are too clever. Most of them, I have been lucky with an impala giving birth before, and impalas normally, they give birth during the daytime when they know that the predators is when they are inactive. So at night they know it's very dangerous. Most of their babies, they are coming during the day. So I'm just about to get to the Chitwa Dam at the moment. Maybe we might be lucky with some other lions there. The Unkuumas, they like that area a lot. Let's hope for the best. Maybe we will be lucky also with one of the spotted cats. So what I like the most about Chitwa is that I always hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So the Chitwa area is full of surprises. So now let's go back to the Masai Mara, where James is also driving around in search of the lovely animals.
Right, we're back trying to find the lions. We haven't quite arrived where we left them. Nearly. Slight flutter in the stomach as to whether or not they're going to be there. Nearly there. Sun is going down. Lions could start to move. It's just about here, wasn't it? Or was it further along, Manu? Further along, the next copse of trees. Phew. Hello, Shyla. To do this job, you've got to be very old, like me. I'm 27, and you need to be about 27 to do this job. No, I'm not 27. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but you need to be, in South Africa, you need to have, it was here, you need to have a driver's license, which means you need to be at least 18. I'm in a mild panic now. Let's go and look inside this little drainage line. Hopefully they're there with the cubs. There's a lion. Whew. Small panic. Don't worry, got the lion. So Charlie, you need to be at least 18 to drive a car. You've got to have 21, be 21 to guide. So to actually guide people, you've got to be 21 years old. But to do this job, to present, to drive a car and talk to camera, I guess all you really need is a driver's license and a, well, pretty good knowledge of the wilderness. So as long as you have those two things, any age really. Thank goodness, there are the sausage tree pride. Where are their babies? That's what I want to know. They're on the move, so they could be on the hunt. We arrived just at the right time. Not have been fun to have arrived here a little bit later. Now, will we see some baby sausages? That would be the best. You want this angle? Manu wants this angle of the sausage tree pride. There we go. I'll sit still now, shall I, Manu? Manu likes me to sit still, not break dance on the back here. As Kirsten says in her inimitably sarcastic manner, very artistic. Is that the kinky tail? No, it's not kinky tail. Kinky tail is one of the other two that we have here. No cubs as yet, and only 2 lionesses. There are 5 in the sausage tree pride. And you can tell that the one is kinky tail by the colour of her nose, which is in fact purple. I'm being sarcastic. You can tell by the kink in her left foot, yes. Keep watching, keep watching. No, that's not her. Wonderful. Swatty tail, Kirsten, what did she say? Is it straight tail? Flippy tail. So funny. Got a gorgeous sunset going on. I'm going to move forward and then we'll get you a picture of the sunset. Kirsten, I think you should be quiet. You reached your pinnacle of your joke skills. That's kinky tail there. Your joke skills reached their apogee yesterday evening with the lightning. That is a heavily pregnant lioness. Well, hopefully they'll lead us to the cubs. But let's just go a little bit forward and show you this gorgeous sunset, which is going down behind Kinky Tail. Is that alright? Beautiful. So beautiful. That really is rather lovely. afraid no camera can really do justice to the actual sight we are seeing here. I wonder if they've eaten recently. I'm not sure that they have. I think that, well, this one flippy tail, that's kinky tail there. She doesn't look very fat, but she looks foolish. Is that kinky tail? No, yes it is. She got a kink in her tail. Can't even see. That is her, yes. They've definitely been eating something. But I think that other one was also very heavily pregnant. And all of you enjoying the sunset? Thank you. Yes, we're enjoying it too. Very gorgeous. I was trying to take some illegal pictures of it and just not vaguely doing it justice. So where the other two members of the Sausage Tree Pride are, I don't know. But I'm going to hang around with these three because, well, I think that's a pretty good return. I'm now going to take an illegal picture with my telephone. Yes. Doop. Very good. Too pretty. Now they've got up and moved from where they were, and I wonder if they've left the cubs because they're going to go hunting, or if perhaps it's the other two that have cubs. Ah, now there's a thought. But maybe they're going to go in search of the other two. And this one next to us is either very pregnant or very full of food. But see how she's not breathing very heavily. Lady Starfire, that's an interesting question, and I mean it's obviously there's a complicated answer to it. You say, if I came across a lion giving birth, would I stay in the sighting? The answer is it depends entirely on the effect that I was having on the sighting. If we drove up onto this riverbed here, looked down and there was a lioness giving birth in a cave, and she didn't move because she's habituated to vehicles like these ones are, then I would sit very quietly and watch, absolutely. Would I tell anyone about it? Probably not, because in a lodge situation you absolutely wouldn't stay, because if one set of guests saw it, that guy, every other guide would want to show their guests the same thing, and every other guest would want to see the same thing, which means that inevitably you would have to put pressure on that cat, and it would be a disaster for the cat. But if you happen to stumble across a lioness giving birth and she didn't react to you at all, well, there's no reason not to stay with her unless you are convinced that you are going to in some way endanger the lives of the cubs or the lioness. And, well, I just don't think that that's always the case. And it's very much similar with leopard cubs and when we stay with leopard cubs, and I know that you were asking Tristan earlier whether or not, or at what stage we stay with cubs without their mothers. There's no hard and fast answer for that. In a lodge situation, you have to have a rule because, well, human beings being what they are, people are going to push boundaries to get their guests the best views. Guests are going to put pressure on their guides to get them the best views, and so there are boundaries. If, for example, you're a film crew and you happen upon a leopard cub on its own without its mother there, you're not lighting the place up, well, there are a lot of people who are expert enough to decide whether or not you're going to impact that cub's life. If it's habituated and it doesn't happen to be it's in the daytime, you're not going to be turning on lights and making a noise, well, then I don't think you are doing any harm. But in a lodge environment, you have to have these rules. And what applies to one must apply to everybody, you see. And so many of the places where we do operate in a kind of lodge environment. Certainly at Juma we operate in a lodge environment. Here not so much. Here it's much bigger, obviously. But that's why we have an Askari on the back of the car to give us guidance if he feels we're putting too much pressure on the animals. Oh, Lily, I believe you've given me a thumbs up for that explanation. Thank you. Very pretty. I wonder if they'll go hunting. Hey me doots. I think they may well be flat cat, as it were, the next few hours. But they have moved a bit, so maybe they'll get up and go. James, you're wondering if I've ever come across an abandoned cub, A, and B, if I then took it into, and I quote, protective custody. No. No, I have never come across an abandoned cub, nor have I taken an animal into protective custody, as you put it. It'd be very tempting to do that, but I wouldn't. There are far too many examples of cubs being raised in captivity and then being released into the wild and being destroyed almost immediately by the locals. By the locals, I mean by the local animals. So, for example, if you were to bring a lion, you found a lion cub, and you thought it's shamies, it's going to die, and you fed it with a bottle, and then you fed it small pieces of boerewors or sausage until it was a little bigger, and then when it was about 2 years old, you thought it's big enough now, and frankly I can't afford the feeding anymore. You spoke to experts and you released it into an area like this. Well, you can imagine, a lot of you know a lot about animal or lion behavior. If a 2-year-old nomad with no experience of the wilderness like this was to come across a pride of lions, who knows what would happen? Most likely they would kill him. And, you know, you just wouldn't know how to react. And the same goes for leopards. You know, if you put a leopard into an area where leopards can live, you can be very sure that there will be leopards in that area. If they can live there, they will be there, and they will be territorial, and they will be intolerant of strangers, and especially strangers with no experience of how to deal with the complexities of leopard social life. And you can be pretty sure that they'll die. And there are countless examples of that. Countless examples, especially, you know, well-to-do filmmakers especially would love to document the lives of animals being raised from cub, where they've been rescued, and almost universally they don't show you the tragic end that those animals suffer through no fault of the filmmaker, it must be said, but it is just extremely difficult to habituate an animal to the wild once it's been raised in captivity. So, to make a long story short, I wouldn't. As tempting as it would be to take hold of an abandoned leopard cub and try and raise it myself and rescue it, it would just be irresponsible. We as a species like to be irresponsible, but still. This is just so unbelievably beautiful. Little crickets are starting to call. The odd frog in the riverbed that surrounds us. The smell of this grass is too magical. I remember when I was a student, which was many years ago, before I go and launch into this tree ties. Oh, there we go, we're okay. I remember going out for my very first grassland science board, practical I suppose it was, and I remember the smell, and I remember thinking I've picked the right thing to study here. Even if I don't enjoy the actual subject, I love the smell of coming out on fieldwork. Alright, somebody who probably doesn't smell so fly is Tlalamba.
Cool, we're going to go live now. I'll chat to you guys in shortly. Now, we're just saying hello to some of the guys that have joined us in the site, in which you can see not much has gone on with little Tlalamba. She's still very sleepy. She's going to probably in all likelihood be like this until such time as night kicks in. In saying that though, last night we spent most of the evening with her until about 7:45, and she didn't really move too much. She sort of sat around and just kind of sat on top of a termite mound. I wouldn't be surprised though, as night falls, that she moves off the ground and starts to find a termite mound. It's much safer for her up there. She can see a lot more of what goes on. Remember that on the ground her scent is going to be much easier to find, and things like hyenas will be generally milling about. Hyenas obviously have a nose for things, and if they pick up the scent of leopard, they generally come and scratch around. So far safer for her to kind of get off the ground and get onto a mound. It's much better up there. So I wouldn't be surprised if she gets up from here and slowly starts to move her way back towards a whole bunch of termite mounds where she came from this morning. So she obviously crossed the road hunting those impalas this morning, and I wouldn't be surprised she heads back that way and goes and lies up on them and waits for Mom to come back. I really do hope that Thandi does come back. There's been lots of squirrels alarm calling kind of around us, but so far nothing has really materialized from it. She certainly doesn't look as though she's aware of anything around her, and I'm pretty sure as soon as Thandi comes into any sort of vicinity where birds alarm call or squirrels, she'll be quite interested to see what's going on. So she'll be a good indicator. I'm probably pretty sure she'll notice Thandi's arrival before we will, and it'll be interesting whether Thandi heads this way or if she heads further to the east. Now, Carly, you're asking about spot pattern 5-4 on Tlalamba. So you can see there on her right side is the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the other side is 4. So it's a 5-4 spot pattern that she has. 5 on the right, 4 on the left. Which is quite a large number of spots. So a lot of our leopards that we see here generally are 3-3s. That's mostly what we see. Is very few that go over that. It's actually quite scary how many leopards have a 3-3 spot pattern. I've never had many more than 5. I'm trying to think of any of the leopards that I've seen that have had more than 5 spots. There was one leopard that I remember having 7, but I can't remember who it was, or if it was even in the Sabi Sands. It might have been a picture that I saw from somewhere else. I can't remember. But most of them will have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is kind of generally what you see on their sort of muzzles. And like I say, Hosanna 3-3. Tingana's got quite a high spot count as well. What is quarantine? James, Richard, I'm sure you'll be able to tell me what quarantine spot pattern is. I don't know offhand. I've only seen quarantine once on SafariLive, and actually once in general, so I don't know him very well. I would be able to recognize him straight away if I saw him, just because he looks so much like Mvula, and I've seen so many photos of him, but I don't know what his spot pattern is. It's quite interesting to kind of think about that, but most of them are kind of in the lower numbers. Tlalamba, are you going to wake up anytime soon? You've got a show that you've got to put on in sort of 45 minutes time. You need to start being a little bit more awake than what's going on now. I suppose she was in her cute phase when we first arrived and was quite sort of active, that we can't complain too much that she's a little bit sleepy now. Yes, exactly, because we'll ask her nicely to go back and do the moustache for TV, although I don't think she will, to be honest. I think that was a little shady spot for the day, and she's now found a better spot to sit. But you see, she's kind of twitching a little bit. That's typical cats when they're sleeping. You'll find that they do twitch quite a lot, their paws and ears, and often the back legs sort of kick out a little bit, and so I'm not surprised if she's having a really good nap. She hasn't been nearly as kind of awake as what she was when we first arrived, which surprises me, because it's getting to that time of the day where it's cooling down and the sun is much lower, and I thought she would have been a little bit more active now than it was during the hottest part of the day. But young leopards, who knows what they actually think and what goes through their minds. But I'm hoping that she will wake up at some point, because at the moment she's very sleepy. So a lot of you saying 5-5. This is the debate that is rage, because Brent and I had this debate the other day about it, and Brent is convinced that it's 5-4, and I said to him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And he said he saw it quite close, and that one spot is amalgamated with the other, but could be wrong. Like I say, does anyone have really good shots of either side of her face that they can share with us, and we can end the debate then if we've got really good shots of it? It'll be quite simple. I know Brent got a really nice sort of side profile of her the other day on either side, so maybe those, or somebody else has got spots. To be honest, it's funny. The spot pattern thing is an interesting thing, because a lot of people who work with outside of the areas will use spot patterns effectively, and certainly when you're looking at photographs, spot patterns is your way to go by a long shot. They're generally the most accurate, obviously, but being out here, a spot pattern almost becomes irrelevant at times. Unless you're a little unsure, then spots can help, but for the most part, a lot of the leopards that we see generally you go by look and by what they sort of, the general overall appearance of them. That's normally how I go about it. So I'll kind of look at Hosanna and I know it's him before I even kind of see his spots. And also remember that spots are a long way away for us. It's not like a zoomed in picture that you're getting when we kind of have the camera right on them. So when we see them from afar, you know, you've got to learn their sort of normal attributes and the way that they just look from distance. Our eyes are not good enough to see their spots straight away. And so you kind of learn to recognize them without a spot pattern. You just learn to see their overall appearance and the way that they look, and that kind of generally goes. Of course, there are times when we get it wrong, and then there's times where we mis-ID things. It's part and parcel of human error and nature. And we don't have the ability to pause and rewind and to kind of screen grab something when we're following a leopard through the bush. So sometimes we get it wrong, and it's not, I promise you, it's not intentional when we do. But for the most part, I find it much easier to recognize a leopard via its general look than trying to look for spot patterns, because it's almost impossible to see spots on both sides of the face of a leopard when you're following it, particularly if it's mobile. It's one thing if it's sitting like this and is posing beautifully, but when they're moving, it's a nightmare. And it's amazing to me that sometimes leopards can be a funny thing, because you know, when you see Thandi or Hosanna or Tingana up close, you immediately know who they are. It's very difficult. But when they're a little bit further away in a little bit of a thicket, sometimes your mind can play tricks on you, and you can be a little unsure, and you kind of call it, and you're not really that kind of convinced by your sort of idea. And then when you get a little closer, you realize actually it is them. But it's one of those things. I mean, there's always each to their own. I know some guides will use spot patterns religiously. For me, I don't really. So a lot of the time when people ask me spot patterns of the leopards that we see, I don't really know them very well at all, because it's not the way that we ID them. Obviously, if it's a newcomer, then we'll try use that. But once you get to know them very well, then it starts to become almost, like I say, a little bit difficult to really notice what the spots are from the distances that we spend time at. But you can hear there's some pearl-spotted owlets that are starting to call as well. Now, sorry, Kirst, if you can just repeat that. It just broke up when you were talking. So apparently Kirsty was starting to choke, and that's why I didn't actually hear half of what she said. But so are spot patterns inherited? No, not exactly. Otherwise you'd find leopards that would be exactly the same. But there are some spots that seem to kind of carry through a little bit. Now, I know this is a big call, but if somebody's got a full profile, or not profile, but a head-on shot of Kalamba with her kind of normal look about her, not with her eyes wide, there, maybe like that shot now, you'll notice, and I know a lot of you will probably think that I'm crazy, but she almost has a few spots that roughly line up to kind of almost match a little bit of what Karula's wow was. It doesn't say wow as easily as what Karula's did, but there's definitely a little kind of shape there that's quite similar. So I think that they do inherit certain spots on them. I don't think it's always going, it's obviously not the same in any way, and the spots do differ, but there's certain spots that you sometimes kind of see on a leopard, and you think to yourself, well, that could easily have carried down from mom, or from maybe even grandmother or father or something like that. And so sometimes you do get these kind of little markings. Now of course she's going to hide her head now so that we can't actually get that pattern, but it's not, like I say, it's not a full wow like Karula had, but there's a few little spots there that kind of look and remind me a little bit of Karula's spot pattern between her eyes on her forehead. Now she's going to even tuck it down further. Lift your head so I can see. Okay, but now you have to turn towards us. No, she's not going to do that. She's going to sleep. That's better. I don't know. Maybe not. Looks a little bit like it to me. I don't know. There's still kind of small spots that she's got there. Not quite the same marking, but I don't know. I mean, it's a debate. There's always this kind of talk about whether or not they do inherit spots. As we know, they definitely don't inherit all of the spots, but I wonder if there's maybe one or two kind of that come through here and there, and there's so many spots on them that to check every single one would be quite tricky in terms of matching them all up and seeing whether or not spots carry through from the adults, and also how far back do you go, because maybe it skips a generation or something like that. I don't know. Interesting kind of topic. I don't know if anyone's ever studied it, to be honest, as to whether spots carry over from the parents. Kalamba? Is it wake up time? Or are you going to still sleep for a while longer? Seems like we're going to sleep for a while longer. Yep, I'm going to go back to sleep. I really do hope Tundi arrives at some point. It would be nice to see Tundi too. I don't see much of her these days, and she's been very elusive, so very kind of looking forward to her having come today, and very surprised that she hasn't made an appearance yet at all over the course of the last sort of 24 hours that little Kalamba's been sitting. In fact, it's more, it's almost 36 hours now that Kalamba's been sitting here on her own. So I do hope that Tundi does come and arrive at some point. Right now, it sounds like James is busy with his infrared at the moment, and Sydney's, I think, still making his way towards Chitwa. So you still stuck with us in our sleepy leopard, who, well, like I say, is taking it very, very easy at the moment. I actually think Sydney should have just joined Jamie this afternoon, because he's also had a fairly easy afternoon of it and taken it very easy. Craig's laughing at the back here. The two of them are the TV stars for this afternoon. I expect lots of things from them this evening then during TV, and hopefully they've enjoyed having a nice sort of relaxing break. I know though that obviously earlier we were joking about Jamie being a TV star not wanting to do internet drive. Of course, that's absolute nonsense. It's that Jigger is broken. So Jigger's got an internal clutch bearing issue, which is not ideal, and so she's decided to just retire Jigger for the afternoon until such time as the TV show, try to get it through the TV show, and then Jigger will be decommissioned tomorrow for 2 days as the gearbox gets hauled out and the internal clutch bearing gets changed by our master mechanic Opa, and so that's what's going to happen to Jigger. And I suppose Jigger's getting old, that these things do happen from time to time, and unfortunately you will see kind of these changes in their cars every now and then. And you know, Rusty was in the doctor for a while, so I suppose it is only fair that Jigger goes and gets a little bit of a kind of look after. She's an old lady now, is Jigger, been around for quite some time and has had a tough life in many respects. It's been obviously driven around by us hooligans, which is never easy for any car. I don't think even Rusty and Wendy have certainly bore the brunt of our driving. Oh, delightful, yes. Now, it sounds like the host of this show and His Majesty Sir James Henry has powdered his nose and powdered his head, and is now ready for us up in the Mara in order to entertain you all as we kind of close out our afternoon.
It can only have come from Mr. T. Dix, I suppose. Yes, I've powdered my nose. It feels powdery, which I don't think is a particularly good way to keep your nose, but, you know, so it is. And I'm now trying to set up various night equipment, much of which I'm going to leave in the wilderness right here. It's so unspeakably useless that Manu said, you have to use this for TV shows. So I took his instruction. I think I would love to know where this instruction comes from. I think I have an idea. And well, basically what I've done is tied myself into about 6 or 7 feet of wire. It's all over me now, and I mean, none of this is making a picture of anything. It's just here. I think we'll just go to the lions. Kirsten now says I sound like a diva. Well, you would too if you'd been tied yourself in a knot with 6 feet of useless wire. Anyway, that's the Sausage Tree Pride, Lioness. They did get up and started sort of looking down towards where they'd come from, almost as if they might go hunting, but then they didn't anymore. They are so distinctive looking in comparison with the Kruger lions. It really is amazing. A bit of a wound on her neck there. And for those of you who are perhaps a little bit new to the show, for me the most obvious distinction is the fact that they've got such big square boxy ears with lots of hair on them. Tristan, I think, came up with a very nice theory as to why they've got hairy ears, and he says he reckons it's to shut up, you useless implement. It's to deal with the wind. Interestingly, this female doesn't have a very hairy ear. can hear some ground hornbills going hoo-doo, hoo-doo-doo-doo, hoo-doo, hoo-doo-doo-doo. In the distance. You won't be able to hear them with the microphone, so you'll just have to make do with my impression thereof. Hoo-doo, hoo-doo-doo-doo. Oh, that's gorgeous. Isn't it pretty? I've said that a lot today, but really, I think I've been justified. Just a little bit of silence. See what we can hear. Last calls of the rufous-naped lark. Apparently you can just hear the calls of the ground hornbills going hoodoo, 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 hoodoo. Very nice. Well, what I want to hear now is the contact call of the two lionesses of the cubs, because that will then fill me with great joy. I haven't seen lion cubs for a while. I'd like to meet the new sausages, the chipolatas. At the moment, however, they don't look like they want to show us anything other than their skills at sleeping. Yes, Maria, it's rather intimidating, but most impressive at the same time, the way the infrared reflects off the tapetum lucidum at the back of the lion's eye. Now, what's also quite interesting is when you see them at a distance, you can't actually see their bodies. You can get that sort of quintessential cartoon picture, if you like, if they're so far away that the infrared doesn't pick up the body, but you can just see the eyes shining, and it really looks very eerie indeed. She's definitely heard something. Maybe a lion far off to the south. I can't hear a lion myself, though. Looking very sphinxish at the moment. What a sphinxish lion. And also, remarkably this evening, is that it's still, there's no wind. The wind does blow here quite a lot. I mean, I've said this as a slight breeze comes up, but it often does blow up a storm at this time of the day. Well, she's going to sleep. Now many of you are asking when our SABC show is. It is tonight, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, on their third channel, SABC3, this evening at 6:30 Central African time. That's 6:30 in South Africa, 7:30 in Kenya, where I'm sitting. So I'm just going to be an hour in front of everybody today on the TV show. And then it goes for an hour until 8:30 our time, 7:30 South African time. Absolutely useless, just shouting at me, is beeping. Useless. We should just leave it here, and then he who wants us to use it can come and fetch it in the morning. Yes, Anna-Marie, you were saying how silent it is in the Mara. Well, it's quite silent, but for this piece of equipment that's been foisted on me. Now I've detached it, I will be giving it back to Manu. Grumpy old man, you say, did I try turning it off and on again? I actually did. I did that 3 or 4 times, and it turned on, and then it turned off again each time. There's a fault. Probably be a fault with me, but I'm not going to try and seek that fault right now. just going to place it there for Manu to deal with. Good. What a lovely evening to be out. Sunday and the Masai Mara, the entire reserve to ourselves and nobody else about. Except at the Sausage Tree Pride. Now, I do hope fervently that they're going to do slightly more than they are doing now when we have our TV show. Yes, it's all very well, you know, shooting the breeze, as it were, with these lions and with you about these lions, but really when TV comes we'd like them to perform slightly. Pirouettes, maybe a little bit of playing, some grooming, and then some finding of baby lions, so that the audience can go, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, as we do, and talk in baby voices. The final control was all talking in baby voices when Jamie introduced you to that tiny elephant today. I wonder if she's got her makeup on. Jamie likes to spend an extended period readying herself for TV for TV shows. Kirsten's just said in my ear, because it was so cute. It was so cute. Nothing, of course, is cuter than lion cubs, and with any luck we'll have some of those. Now get up and go and get your lion cubs. Come on. Flying high, you say, wouldn't it be fun if the car battery died? Flying high, in a word, no. It wouldn't be fun if the car battery died. It wouldn't be fun because, well, as you can well imagine, it'd be difficult to push the car at this stage here. It'd be difficult to get somebody down to us on account of the fact that we don't actually have any cell phone signals, so to give them a pin would be hard. No, I don't think it would be fun. I did actually run the battery flat on this very car a few nights ago. I managed to leave the light on. And so when Pat and Claudie got into it to start the engine, it was dead. And I wanted to blame everybody else, but unfortunately had to blame myself, which hurt me deeply to the core of my being. Anyway, we have survived. Here we are, in the same car, and the lights are off. Now, I don't know, but Manu, does it look like to you she may have been suckling? I don't think she has. I think those are just fairly swollen. Maybe she's also pregnant. Alright, let's go across to Sidders, who apparently has now also got some Leonis.
I am just here by the Chito and we are lucky to have the Unkuhumas. At the moment, the Unkuhumas, the whole pride is just lying down here. So fortunately, we managed to get hold of the big cats. Look at that. This is an incredible sighting. So they are all still sleeping here at the moment, but I can see that the sun is going down and the temperature is cooling. We might start seeing some activities here very shortly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 10 of them. I can see the 3 from the Mangeni pride, as well as the 2, 4, 6, 7 from the Unkuhuma pride. So you can see the Mangeni pride. They are he's trying to lick himself. He's doing some self-grooming. So these are one of those. So that is one of those Mangeni lions, the one who is having the problem with the mange, which is part of a skin disease transmitted by some of the mites. So it's kind of a parasite. So I am very happy that we got the lions after such a very long search. So you can see they are very close to each other, so this helps in order to warm them. The mane looks better by the young males. This mane starts to grow when they are just about 2 years, and that is when they start to get chased away because the mane is coming down. When the mane is starting to develop, it starts to irritate the dominant males in the territories. Look at that. None of the Unkuhuma is grooming the Mangeni lion. So you can see they're now starting to stretch at the moment. So I can't wait to see what their plans are for this evening. And thank you very, very much. It has been a fantastic afternoon, and thank you very, very much for all your questions and comments. Let's meet again tomorrow.